So I'm sitting with Marion.
Hello.
How you going?
I'm good, thanks, Gwen.
Gwilym.
Gwilym.
Or Gwill.
Gwill.
You can just call me Gwill.
Yeah, that's fine, thanks, Gwill. No, it's great to be here.
Yeah, and me too. I just think this is great that I've connected with you and we're having this conversation.
Yeah, no, thanks.
And you were let's say around 7 years old, and you were dyslexic at school, and the kids were giving you a hard time.
Yeah, no,
as they do.
No, I was really dyslexic. I didn't matter how hard I tried, I couldn't learn to spell.
Right.
I found reading difficult, maths even more difficult. Standing up in class to do the times tables would give me horrors for weeks if I thought it was going to be my turn. I just couldn't do it. And so consequently I was a dum-dum, and that's how I thought of myself. And my sister was bright, everyone else was bright, and so anyway, it sort of was the beginning of my journey in a way, a little bit of self-loathing, a little bit of no self-worth, more than self-loathing. It was sort of just a total lack of self-worth came into my life through that. And it wasn't until I was just about at the end of primary school, I was very, very lucky. My last year at primary, I got a teacher who had a bit to do with dyslexia and told my parents I wasn't dumb.
Wow.
And he taught me.
What about that moment when they...
Yeah, I know. It was unbelievable.
Did you feel?
Yeah,
you
it was
a lot of joy, I bet.
Yeah. Well, suddenly I wasn't this dum-dum,
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. And also he taught me how I could learn. Sort of, he taught me in ways that I could pick things up. So I didn't feel so dumb.
Yeah.
So then I went off to boarding school, which was pretty challenging. We had to go because we lived in the back country, as we were brought up. And at secondary school, I was put in the lowest classes because of my learning ability, and consequently the teachers in those lower classes taught slowly in a way that I could learn as well, and I ended up coming top of the class instead of being the dunce of the class.
Wow.
And then that had the opposite effect, because then everyone sort of got a bit snarly at me because, when it came to end of the year and who was top of the class, we all know Marion is, and so, and that, I didn't want to be there either. I just wanted to be like everyone else.
Yes.
But I didn't.
You wanted to fit in.
I wanted to fit in, yeah.
So look, I just want to ask you about your mum and dad and their relationship, because that's where we learned that they were our primary relationship teachers.
Yeah.
So what was their relationship?
Well, Mum, they were loving parents to the best of their abilities, but Dad was a product of the war, and many men who have been through the war have quite serious behaviour problems because of the war and the traumas and everything else. Yeah. So Mum used to get a very hard time, and we had a very hard time as kids. We'd be out mustering sheep, and if we didn't do it right, we'd get a baton thrown at us, sort of thing. We worked hard, and we were pretty wild too, because it was backcountry farm, very rough rehab farm. And my mother was quite, the way to tell you it would be probably best if Dad was working in the yards and he was ready, one of us would have to sit on the windowsill to see when Dad was coming home for a cup of tea, because Mum would have to have his cup of tea ready. She would have to have the right cakes on the table for him. No. She would have to have his tea just the right temperature for when he walked in. And so we would also,
that would
there
be
was that
tension, high tension, really.
Tension, yeah, definitely tension. And Dad had a very quick temper. Yeah. So
it doesn't help you.
So that, and also I wasn't the favoured one. My sister was older than me, and she always helped Dad, and I should have been born a boy, and I wasn't, so I sort of got missed out all through, sort of got, and then the huge effect. And then the boy was born after me, so the boy was Dad's boy, and I was lost in the middle of those two, and then the young, sort of, I had a couple of other siblings as well, but that was the main, effect of, yeah.
All right. And you moved on then, when you were when did you leave home? How old were you when you left home?
I was 17 when I left home, and I went into nursing, and because my parents told me to, I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It was general nursing, and I met a man while I was going through my training, and I was over halfway through my general nurse training, and like I say, I thought I fell in love. I think it was lust instead of love in hindsight, but that's many people do that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I guess it was also romantic love.
I did. But once again, I'd learnt sort of from a little bit of my parent conditioning too, that I had, and it was a condition I had, that it was a woman's place to make a man happy and to keep him happy.
Yeah.
And you didn't have a successful marriage unless you did that. So consequently, I sold my soul.
Yes.
And did everything in my power to make this man happy.
So can you feel the pain of that?
I didn't realise I was doing that at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you feel the
because
pain?
it's insidious.
You must have felt the pain of it.
It built up. Yeah, it definitely. Through the marriage it built up, because nothing I ever did was quite right, and I was domineering, or I was always something wrong with me,
Yeah.
And so I had 3 children. Loved my children dearly. A mother like the lioness who protects her kids. Anyway, but all through all this, I still didn't ever find myself or my self-esteem. So the marriage slowly deteriorated. Like we were in that era where there was, we got into wife swapping, it got into drugs, it got into alcohol abuse, we did the whole journey. And at this stage, to cut a long story short, we had an orchard. And it was hard work, and I was also working as a livestock agent at that time. I was the first woman in New Zealand to be employed as a livestock agent who went out and did the farm work and everything.
Right.
So anyway, and I was also working the orchard, working, hours and hours, 18 hours and 20 hours a day sort of thing, to get everything in with the 3 kids. And amongst all that, sort of all this other stuff went on, and I just got into the state. I'd beaten myself up, I fell off my horse and smashed all my legs and smashed my hand, I smashed everything, smashed myself in every way I could smash myself, my body physically as well as mentally.
Yeah.
And anyway, this all started spiralling down, until I hated myself, basically. And I just thought I was worthless, absolutely worthless. There was not one single thing I liked enough about myself to even give one consideration to. It was just, and I tried to destroy myself in all those ways, and it didn't sort of work. I was still there, I was still alive, I still had to live. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I decided everyone would be far, far better off without me around. My children, my husband, it got myself to where I didn't feel anymore, because I'd shut all my feelings down, because of the self-loathing and the self, degradation, the self, And it was all against any values I held dearly, everything I'd done, It was just a self-destruct totally. So one day I decided I wasn't coming back. I was suicidal. I was going out to commit suicide. And I didn't say anything to anyone. No one would have ever known, because I played the game very well. They all thought, we were happily married, and
right.
And I could smile, I could laugh and play the game.
You'd covered it.
Covered it really well. I was a good actor.
Yeah.
But underneath all this other stuff was going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I left the house. I had no thoughts left by this time, and I was in a fog, basically. I just felt like I was in a fog walking.
Yeah.
And went across the top of the orchard, and I got halfway there. I didn't know. Anyway, I didn't get a chance to do anything. So this most incredible light just went wham, and it was just all around me, and it just filled me. And I just stood there with my mouth hanging open. Wow! I was absolutely just gobsmacked. And it's just like this And then I looked down inside myself where I thought there was nothing, and this voice inside me said, I am. And I go, wow, there's something in there after all, you know?
Wow.
It was like, wow. And suddenly I could hear the birds singing, I could see the leaves falling, I could feel the breeze on my face again. I hadn't felt any of these things for a long time. I'd shut down so much. And it was just like, this light was just the most incredible love, the most incredible just energy you can't even imagine. It was so absolutely amazing. And I got downloaded with a whole lot of information at that time, that, hey, I did have a journey in my life. I did have an important part to play. I did need to stay alive, you know. And basically, that experience finished, and I was standing there, wow, what do I do now, you know? And I thought, well, I'll try and I'll try and make my marriage work, you know, because... Tried that. He didn't want to stop the cheating and everything else, and but I still had to learn to live again, and you know, so I carried on as well. And anyway, it wasn't till this was just not long afterwards, and I was in the car with this guy I was having an affair with. He was having his affairs, and this voice said to me, "Thou shalt not commit adultery. If you choose to live this life, it's your choice, or you can choose to live the life you've seen." You know, that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, or the spiritual life, you know. Boy, was I out of that car in a hurry. I didn't want to carry on with life as it had been. And from that point, that was really another turning point. You know, I'd been given the choice when the light hit me, but I didn't make the changes. And that was, you know, I was given that there was no choice in that, you know, for me. And so I started learning to live again. I couldn't tell anyone about what had happened because I sounded crazy, but I did try and tell my husband, and he just looked at me and thought, you're stuffed in the head, you know. Yeah. So I just tried to really learn my own values again, who I was, how I felt, you know. And it took a lot of building. It's like, you know. Yeah. And it's like when you're learning to ride a bike again, or a bike at all, you fall off lots of times to start with, you know, and you've got to get back on, and you know. Yeah. And I get... And be gentle on yourself in the process. It's very tricky. Yeah, yeah. Because you're trying to reshape your whole being. Yeah, yeah. And the only thing I had, was this. I had that memory of that magnificent energy, you know. Yeah. And I knew that I had. Well, basically, it was a spiritual path to follow, and I started getting interested in healing work and meditation and, you know, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And so I started going to a meditation group and I started, you know, I'd hold on to songs in my head, anything to make myself feel better. I'd make myself notice a beautiful flower. The depression didn't just suddenly disappear, you know. No. I had to really really take a focus, a very conscious focus as well, and work on it to start with, you know. Yeah. I had to make myself see the beauty in the flower. I had to make myself, you know.
Was there anybody around you who was saying, hey, come on, pick yourself up?
No. No, because no one knew what had happened. Yeah. And suddenly I didn't want these affairs. I didn't want the drugs. I didn't want the alcohol. You know, I didn't want any of that. Yeah. My husband, I don't think he ever he didn't cope with that because he carried on with his affairs and everything else. And anyway, and what happened the orchard was going further bankrupt, and this emotional stuff, it really got to me, and the tendons in my wrists broke down, you know, the tendon sheaths. I had carpal tunnel in both hands. Right. And this was just after I told him, look, I think our marriage is finished. I need to go, you know. And anyway, and I went, and I wanted to do massage and stuff, you know, because I'd taken a massage course. I'd learnt to do that, and how was I going to do it? I couldn't use my hands anymore, and this was when we were right on the brink of our marriage breaking up. Was consequently, you know, it did break up. And anyway, then I went to this guy I heard was a healer, and he said to me, well, you've learnt to meditate, haven't you? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, why don't you go home, do some meditation and sort out the shit you're holding on to around your marriage breakup and everything. And he said, I think you might find it goes. And anyway, so I went home. The doctors had said there was at that chance, if they did surgery on it, there was only 50-50 if you were lucky chance of it getting better. So anyway, I started my meditation. And I sorted out my emotional shit over that, did some bit of forgiveness stuff and did the deep, the deep journey. You've got to go deep inside to really clear that cellular memory a bit,
Yeah, and also, to actually know, to become more conscious of what you're doing.
Yeah, to be, and conscious of my feelings and things.
It's also sometimes you've got to make the hard call. And be really strong. And go, no, I don't want that anymore, don't you?
That was it, and it's hard. And those changes and those hard calls are very difficult to make in that point of time. So, but surprisingly enough, within 3 months, my arms were fine again.
Wow!
It only took 3 months of digging, going deep into myself, being totally honest with my own thoughts, being honest with my own feelings, being honest with my own shit around it.
Right.
Yeah, and so they came right, and it was about that stage I went off and I put myself into a situation. The orchard was bankrupt. We ended up we didn't go bankrupt. A lot of huge debt was written off against us, and that was really hard to swallow as well, because some of it was family money.
Yeah.
We couldn't do anything about it. And there was a lot of other stuff happen around that. But I ended up with my 3 children on my own, basically, and I was in a situation once again where I had no support whatsoever because I had no money. I didn't have a dime to my name. My ex now, he didn't contribute anything, and I couldn't contact my parents because I couldn't afford the phone calls. And so I went down that whole self-destruct thing again, That's what I mean. It doesn't always necessarily be easy just because I had this wonderful experience.
Yeah, no.
And, and I couldn't cope with the bills. I couldn't cope with the kids.
And it keeps testing you, doesn't it?
And the eldest boy wanted to take over the father's role, so started treating me like the father because they were teenagers. He was a teenager at this stage and, should be the man of the house and, and all this drama was going on. So, and I'd had, as I say, before this all happened, I'd fallen off my horse and smashed up my leg really badly, and it hadn't been set properly. The ankle joint was gone. And anyway, at this time now, I got really bad rheumatoid arthritis in my ankle. I couldn't walk.
Right.
It was a real poor me. I had 3 kids and a dog, no money, no house, no nothing. And consequently, I went to the doctor, said in the end, he said, we can't do anything more for you. Painkillers aren't going to control the pain. We're going to have to stiffen your joint in the ankle that I'd smashed up. And so he gave me all these pills and things and said, so I went home and I thought, where do I go from here? And anyway, I thought back a bit. I really started doing my meditation again, and I threw all the pills down the toilet again. Not the best place. I know you shouldn't throw them down the toilet now. I should have done something more anyway. But I threw them down the toilet and I thought, right, get on with doing this. And I really went into my pain of being alone, of being isolated, of being, having nowhere to go, no one to support me. What do you do? How do I feed them? How do I... Yeah, and...
So you went into your feelings, your deep feelings?
It's feeling that you've got to get right down into those real... feelings, we tend to keep our feelings in this Pandora's box, I call it, and put a lid on it. Don't need to go there. The anger, the all that stuff. Put the lid on it. I don't feel that. But I knew to get better, I had to take myself there, and so I took myself there again. And anyway, consequently, I've never had rheumatoid arthritis again, but if I find that it went away and I've still got my ankle joint, I can run on my joint now, I can do anything on that joint, as long as I do have to look after a little bit because there's no joint. And so that was my second experience of self-healing, And
so that's part 1. That's part 1 of Marion's inner journey. Okay.